tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nicole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.
Oh, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us. It is Friday, November 4th. Today's National Candy Day and National Chicken Lady Day? Question mark. Thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every morning and high at the high noon on the East Coast. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share on all social media platforms. Please give us a comment or two in the YouTube chat. If you got something to say, you can even go ahead and raise your hand on Clubhouse if you want to chime in and let us hear your voice. Every single day, you can bring or hear us in the morning, and you can find the funnies and ready for you to go. If you're on Clubhouse, please raise your hand so you can participate. We're going to get started this morning with Mr. Jason Beck. Jason Beck is the longest running retailer in the history of regulated cannabis. He's also the least likely to want to RSVP to your party and the most likely to think that he should have been there. And also, he is smoking the best weed in the world. And if you invite him to your party, he just might bring some. So, Jason, what do you have for us today?
Oh, yeah, those are all true things. I hate RSVPing for anything because it's stupid. But nonetheless, people need to do it, I guess, but it's not going to be me. But nonetheless, I digress because there's much more in the weeds going on in Michigan. There's a lot of shady shit going on out there. So much shady shit, you might as well be in Florida. But nonetheless, the National Veterans Advocacy Group, Weed for Warriors, announces that $40 million approved by Michigan voters for veteran marijuana research has turned into a political slush fund. When Michigan voters approved Proposal 1, legalizing adult use in 2018, $40 million of future tax revenue was allocated to FDA-approved clinical trials to study the efficiency of marijuana in medically treating U.S. Armed Service veterans and in preventing veteran suicide. The Weed for Warriors organization is in possession of documents that have raised concerns. It appears that one or more of the guarantees fails to meet the important benchmark defined in the law, requiring some money to be awarded to, in quotes, you guys, clinical trials that are approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. Additionally, it is clear basic accounting controls routine to the research industry have not been implemented by the state of Michigan or followed by the grantees. Voters approved Michigan's Proposal 1 with crystal clear clarity on how tax revenue should be spent, said Weed for Warriors Executive Director Sean Kernan. Michigan's current lack of standard accounting controls means there is no way to ascertain if monies have been or will be spent in accordance with the law. Veterans and voters of Michigan deserve and demand accountability. Weed for Warriors asked Governor Whitmire for an immediate accounting of guarantee spending to date, a commitment of transparency on spending going forward, and finally a review on whether the grantee's research qualifies as FDA-approved clinical trials as outlined by the law. And here you guys go. I have a quote in this too. So here's my quote. Hope you guys are ready. The short history of adult use legalization in this country is riddled with government corruption. Something definitely stinks in Michigan, and it's not the weed, said Jason Beck, the longest continuous retail operator of cannabis in the United States. That's right. That was my quote, and I stand by it. And something definitely stinks out in Michigan, and it's definitely not the weed. It's the blatant corruption that is going on. And I want to know where this $40 million is, Governor Whitmire. What do you have to say for yourself? And this is Jason Beck reporting for High at 9 News.
Michigan's crazy right now, man. All kinds of corruption.
What was the money supposed to be being spent on? What was
The
the
money was
exact
supposed to be
allocation?
spent on studies that were FDA approved studies for veterans research.
And then it's being Sean's or the Weed for Warriors are saying it's being misappropriated, or
It has
we
been
just don't know where it is.
misappropriated because there is monies that have been allegedly spent on studies and given to so-called dispensary operators in Michigan for product to conduct these studies on, which everyone knows that is a clear violation of FDA guidelines in regards to your case studies and sample sizes, because those are not NIDA approved specimens.
Didn't they approve that though recently in certain states that they were going to start doing their specific it wasn't the FDA, it was the DEA lab stuff. They were going to start allowing you to pull from companies. Wasn't that something that
I think that
recently?
is only strictly for in regards with university studies. This is a taxpayer funded study, so I don't believe that it would fall within the guidelines of that, but that is a good, interesting point that we definitely should follow up on.
Yeah, because the DEA, I know the DEA was doing that or trying to do that.
And not that, it's early for me to start slapping you around, Jason Beck.
Oh, please, please. I love being abused.
I think we should point out to our listeners that this is a press release from Weed for Warriors, and no actual reporting has been done or questions to Michigan about where the fucking money is.
Well, that's because this press release just came out, and we're hoping
to
build some steam behind it, because there's
definitely there, Jason Beck.
I'm very fair and I'm very balanced, and I've seen the evidence that will be coming out in the future.
Well, then link your evidence to your press releases, Mr. Transparent.
That's coming in the next one, Gretchen. It's coming in the next one. We gotta build the anticipation. You know what I'm saying?
Oh dear God! So this is just a little enterprise of marketing. This has nothing to do with actual news.
This is definitely no. There's $40 million that are taxpayer funds that have been misappropriated.
Okay, we'll prove it. Let's see it.
$40 million.
Well, that's why we're asking for the governor to provide an accounting.
Okay, well,
they should be able to do that.
Hey, Jason, it's crazy you said that the money has not been accounted for, because I just got off a webinar yesterday that the governor's office has also been ducking a FOIA request for Veritas Labs, $230 million lawsuit, saying that they were fucking up potency, doing a bunch of other shit, and there's no evidence of anything. There's some crazy shit going down, and you know what I'm saying, like the fish rots from the head.
That's
something's going on in Michigan. I don't know if it's the governor's office, I don't know if it's the CRA out there, but there's a lot of stuff that's not being accounted for. I can't wait to see more information on your story as that rolls out, but there's plenty of evidence against Michigan and the CRA and how they handled that case with the top lab testing facility in Michigan.
I covered that story last year about that lab, and I kind of followed it for a little while. I had a couple clients that were working with them at one point, and there was 3 locations. And one of their locations, they were able to. There was evidence from retailers and from product manufacturers that was presented.
Check out the new stuff. There's a webinar yesterday, huge press release yesterday, and I'm doing an exclusive interview on Cannabis this weekend with their founders as well as members of the CRA, so we can get both sides of that story. But they have been working nonstop to answer all of the questions for the CRA, and they have been ducking them, and there's nothing but evidence piling up against them. So I would not be surprised, Jason, if your story does have legs to it. Because there's a lot of shady stuff going on in Michigan right now.
Okay, before we're jumping all over some great government conspiracy,
this is not a conspiracy.
Here's my question, Jason Beck:
is theory. It might be a conspiracy.
Since you seem pretty involved in this, what has been asked of Michigan, and has there been any response, any timelines given? Because to me, I see this more as red tape bureaucracy slowing shit down. I mean, it's $40 million of future funds that are supposed to come in. That ain't gonna happen fucking overnight.
Hold on, that was when it was passed. That was when it was passed. Those 40 million funds that came in.
And I'm still saying the government moves extremely slow. So I'm just wondering what questions have been posed to Michigan, and have they told you to fuck off?
Well, I mean, it's pretty clear in the press release, Gretchen. We're asking for the governor to provide a clear accounting of everything.
So you just asked the governor's office. I'm asking, have you asked the appropriate agencies?
Has a FOIA request been
has actual paperwork been put together to tell us what's happening here?
To my understanding, I believe the answer is yes, but I'm not the person that files that paperwork, so I can't give you a hard definitive.
All
There's
right.
definitely more to come. More to come.
Yes, there's definitely more to come on this story, and we're going to track it as it goes because
This is some hashtag news.
but if they're slushing that
there's
fund,
some-
I mean,
there's-
come
there's-
on,
there's-
Weed for Warriors.
there's some
shitty fund to
slush.
be
There's some
slushing.
slush in the fund for sure.
We'll be tracking it, unlike the high-speed rail here in California.
That's right. That's right, Rico. Very true. Very, very true.
Stay tuned.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
All right.
Can't wait for some facts. Facts will be amazing in this story.
We will be bringing all the facts because that's what we do here at the High at 9 News. We talk about the facts and not fiction.
Following up
we
on
do
that,
have-
Jason.
we do
Why
have
there's
one
40
fact.
million. If you do not bring the evidence, Jason, we will be outing you.
That's
As
fine. I'm totally fine.
There is
being
one
outed.
fact, and the fact is that there's concern, right? This article to me,
Yes.
the only fact that I see
This
in
press
this article,
release.
in this press release, is that there's concern.
I mean, how's it a
I
press
love
release when
concerned
Benzinga picked it up?
citizens
It's a press release. It says it at the
exercising
top.
their First
Follow the
Amendment.
money, right, Rico? Follow the
Mhm.
We
money.
will
It's a
be
press
following
release,
the money.
Jason. How's it a press
I
release?
might be
Because it's a press
on my
release.
one-leg scooter, but I will be following that money.
All Benzinga did was repost a press release. You can tell that by their attribute at the top to PR
PR
Newswire.
Newswire, yeah.
If it was a real story, a reporter would put their byline on it.
It will be.
Well,
Just wait, Gretchen is coming.
I can't wait.
Well-
I'm looking forward to this breaking news coming from you,
I know.
Jason.
I
can't wait.
know. I have
It's
questions.
getting me excited. I got goosebumps here in Washington. Just wait.
Let's
And
keep
wait
like
for
the
my
veterans-
$100
I
that
feel
you
like
owe
the-
me.
I feel like the
You know.
veterans in Michigan are getting shafted on this one right now.
All right, let's see.
I feel like veterans get shafted a lot, like honestly, in a lot of appropriation of funds. Like it wouldn't be surprising if they were. It sucks that they do, but I feel like in America, we're really good at turning and burning our veterans. Like that is like our fucking MO. Like let's just fuck them up and leave them on the side of the ground and walk away. And so it wouldn't surprise me at all because that's the American way.
They're just used
Turn
for
and
cogs in the military industrial complex. We need to stop that
Yeah.
shit. But let's keep it moving here because as a felon, she was very newsworthy back in the day. The woman formerly known as Jail Google dedicated her life to paying forward the knowledge learned 30 days locked up in a cold cell in Colorado. And she pays that knowledge forward because she never wants you to end up in the same place. She's now a Long Beach-based agriculture, efficiency, and compliance expert, part-time student working on her doctorate in dirtbag dynamics. And up next is the self-described data bitch herself, Nicole West. What do you have for us today on this beautiful Friday morning?
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. My headline's actually coming out of the place that I did my time, out of Colorado, where I would like to say there's a funny name that we used to call Governor Hickenlooper. We used to call him Governor Chickenlooper. So I think I'll go ahead and use that throughout this title. But there is some really positive things that are happening in Colorado right now. And this is kind of backing my hopes for descheduling. So new Senate bill would create federal marijuana commission to prepare for legalization. So marking the 10th anniversary since Colorado voters approved marijuana legalization at the ballot, Senator John Chickenlooper, or Hickenlooper as his real name is, announced on Thursday they will soon be filing a congressional bill to set the country up for federal cannabis reform. Sounds like he's not being so chicken anymore. Specifically, preparing regulators effectively for a post-prohibition adult use regulated environment act, or PREPARE Act, would direct the Attorney General to create commission charged with making recommendations on regulatory systems for marijuana that model what's currently placed for alcohol. And I will say the Colorado regulations were written. It was literally the original law was regulate like alcohol when they were trying to pass it, the RLA. So this is interesting that they're continuing on that path. The measure is identical to a House champion bill that Representative Dave Joyce and Hakeem Jeffries and Brian Mast filed in April. Hickenlooper's staff told Marijuana Moment that the Senate version will be formally introduced when the chamber returns from its recess in mid-November. The senator sees the commission that would create the legislation as similar to a task force he impaneled that was in Colorado's governor to steer implementation of legalization at a state level. So there's a tweet from Hickenlooper where he says, federal marijuana legalization doesn't need to start from scratch, and we should prepare for it now. Today, we introduced the PREPARE Act, a bipartisan bill to pave the way for federal regulation of marijuana once legalization arrives. And I just keep hearing those words, and I'm like, we are closer than I think my Republican friends on the stage think to descheduling. I'm very hopeful, at least. Colorado successfully pioneered marijuana legalization a decade ago. I don't know what the word success means in that sentence, but thanks in part to Amendment 64 Task Force, he said in a press release, federal legalization doesn't need to start from scratch. True. A new congressional measure would provide lawmakers across the ideological spectrum to the opportunity to engage on cannabis reform by creating a fair, honest, and publicly transparent process for federal government to establish effective regulation and enact upon the termination of its 85-year prohibition of cannabis, according to the summary. The idea of creating a commission on the federal regulation of cannabis could attract bipartisan support, especially among lawmakers and those reluctant to back legislation federally and legalize cannabis altogether. That said, advocates have become increasingly impatient with marijuana incrementalism in Congress, imploring lawmakers to follow the lead of states and put an end to the widely unpopular policy of cannabis criminalization. I could not agree more with that. So Dave Joyce tweeted, thrilled that Senator John Hickenlooper will introduce my PREPARE Act in Senate, making it not only a further bipartisan, but bicameral. What does that mean? And bringing it to one step closer. What does that mean?
It means both houses, the House and the Senate.
Yeah, bicameral. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Awesome. Bicameral, and bringing it one step closer to becoming law. I look forward to continuing the work to pave the way for the comprehensive cannabis reform. So I'm pretty excited to hear about this. Here's what the bill would accomplish. It would require the Attorney General to establish a commission for the federal legalization of cannabis within 30 days of the bill's enactment. The commission would be responsible for studying federal and state regulatory models for alcohol and make recommendations of how they could inform marijuana regulations. Among these things, the commission's report must look at the impact of marijuana criminalization, particularly in its concerns to minority, low-income, and veteran communities. The panel would also examine the lack of consistent regulations for cannabis product safety and labeling requirements, as well as the lack of guidance for cannabis corporate production, sale, interstate, intrastate, and international trade. It would also need to make recommendations on how to remedy cannabis-related banking and research barriers, as well as address the measures to ensure a successful coexistence in individual hemp and cannabis industries, including prevention of cross-pollination of cannabis and hemp products. Whew, that's hopeful. Members would further be mandated to study the recommendation of an efficient cannabis revenue reporting and collecting, including the efficient and tenable federal revenue framework. This panel would also be required to issue a report to Congress within 12 months. The panel would include representatives from the Department of Health, Department of Justice, Department of Agriculture, Veteran Affairs, Interior, Education, Labor, Commerce, Health, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Tax Trade Bureau, Food and Drug Administration, Internal Revenue Service, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, National Institute of Standards and Technology, Small Business Administration, and U.S. Trade Representatives. The bill, I did get a chance to kind of breeze through a little bit. It's pretty exciting. I know Colorado has been leading the way since the very beginning of kind of pushing these things forward. And I'm glad to see that they're actually still doing that. And I'm glad to see that John Hickenlooper is getting his name back and being less of a chicken looper. Very excited to see what everyone else has to say on the stage as well. And I'm Nicole West, getting high at 9 with y'all.
Well, I appreciate Hickenlooper pretending to care about this issue.
Exactly.
It's so nice of him to say that he's introducing it when there's like 2 months left to go in this session. Ain't shit gonna happen here. Dave Joyce is actually the one who was leading the way by introducing the Prepares Act back in April in the House. So Republicans are the ones who are leading the way once again on the charge on cannabis in Congress. If Hickenlooper really cares, he will take up this mantle as his first priority in the next session of Congress.
He won't.
So we shall see if he means what he
won't.
Is pretending to.
It's all lip service. He didn't support the legalizing cannabis back when he was the mayor of Colorado when this first happened. Amendment 64 first happened, and is just playing lip service.
Jason,
now.
aren't you the one that always says that they evolve?
Well, yeah,
I'm all for the evolution. Okay, but I want it to be positive. And right now, this just sounds like more lip service of like, let's create a committee so we can get ready for legalization. Like we've been ready for legalization. We've been ready for descheduling. Let's get a fucking move on it.
Jason, in defense of Hickenlooper, yes, you are prepared for legalization, but the government is not. That is the whole point of the Prepares Act. The Prepares Act has to get all these damn people on board. That's what people forget about. They're like, legalization's coming. Legalization ain't happening until Congress gets all their shit and all their ducks in order. And there's a lot of fucking agencies who have to be on board with regulations for legalization to happen. They're not going to have just some crazy gray market running for 3 years while they figure this shit out.
That's why people should be just supporting Congresswoman Nancy Mace's bill. It's much better.
Oh wow. But I am gonna say, like I did say, we used to call him Chicken Looper for a long time. There's definitely some irony to the fact that I went to jail for what's called looping. And they call it
with a Hicken Looper.
Yeah, with a chicken looper. But
it sounds like a sexual term.
Looping?
Chicken looping.
Oh.
Chicken looping. I mean,
maybe. Anyways, but
back to the farm.
With what he's been doing, he created a task force in Colorado with Ian Sieb, and like I've been mildly feeling mildly positive about some of the movements that have been going on there. And as somebody who has a really, really bad fucking taste in their mouth for the state of Colorado and the governor and everything that went on over there, I do feel like this is a positive move. And I do think that there is a little bit different of a vibe going on there with the Cannabis Commission that is doing a lot of advising for the governor now.
I agree. Ian Sieb's a great guy, and I love having him in there. I had the honor of interviewing him and Governor Polis when we shot our Denver pilot, and they're on board, man. I mean, they want this to go through. I did ask the governor. I got some questions from Jason before I interviewed the governor. But I hit him with
wouldn't let you ask.
One of the things was on rescheduling or rescheduling, and he's absolutely against the whole rescheduling. He did say that he wouldn't mind seeing pharmacies or doctors more involved with medical. I didn't agree with him there, but overall, they're on board. Stop.
He's saying that to cover his ass.
But it would be nice, honestly, Stone, if there were more pharmacists that were like, there's a pharmacist, Cody, that always helps people. I think there's a good value for pharmacists to be able to have a fucking straight conversation with you about your medicines and your weed. You know what I mean? So
it'd be nice if the states it'd be nice if the states that have medical programs in place encouraged a employee tax credit, so then that way dispensaries could hire people like this in a realistic manner.
Yeah,
right.
Or if pharmacists were encouraged to do that, or you know what I mean, like that, just to be able to have that conversation.
They have to be subsidized some way in order for them to work in the cannabis space.
You got to kill 280E and create more money within the industry.
I'm always killing 280E. I'm a big proponent for that. I'm number one with that, Stone, all the way.
Well, like you say, Jason, how will they replace those funds? How will they replace them?
That's what when you have a big hole, you got to fill it up with a lot of dough. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe they can take a loan from that $40 million missing from Michigan. Tell you what,
that'd be just a drop in the bucket for them. But nonetheless, speaking of drops in the bucket, that's right. Coming up next, it is the dope dad himself. That's right, Rico Lamitte. When he's not at home playing with paint, playing with pasta shells, and sharing paste, you can find him at TEDx conventions, babysitting grown-ass adults, changing their diapers, and monitoring their hall passes on a regular basis at a casino near you. But nonetheless, when he's not doing any of that, you can find him sitting on his ass because he's injured. That's right. He's on the IRL. That's right. From getting tripped up over safe banking. But nonetheless, it's all good because safe banking is ultimately going to pass, and it's going to be an amazing day, and we're all going to celebrate and hold hands and sing Kumbaya that day. But until that day, we have the dope dad himself, Rico Lamitte.
Another great introduction by Jason Beck. Thank you for that, my man. My story today, my headline today is coming from Revolt. It was covered by several other sources as well, but it was first covered by Revolt, obviously, because it's owned by Diddy too, but it's by Isha Thorpe. Diddy creates the largest Black-owned cannabis company in the world. Sean Combs, known over the years as Puffy, Puff Daddy, Puff, Diddy, Swag, Brother Love. But chances are he'll be going right back to Puffy because he's about to be the biggest Black-owned cannabis company owner in the world, Craig. Fresh off the heels of a depressing report released by MJ Biz Daily yesterday showing Black executive numbers in cannabis are reaching an all-time low since their pre-pandemic peaks. Another line of good news broke early today that globally recognized influential business mogul Sean Diddy Combs will be acquiring assets from Cresco Labs, currently the 8th largest MSO by market cap and #1 wholesaler of branded cannabis. And Columbia Care, the 9th largest MSO in 3 major U.S. markets, making him the creator of the largest minority-owned vertically integrated cannabis company in the world. The assets are located in New York, Illinois, and Massachusetts, paving the way for Diddy to cultivate, manufacture, distribute, and operate retail businesses in New York, Boston, and Chicago. Upon completion, the total acquisition price for all of that will be $185 million. Approximately $110 million of that will be in cash. $45 million will be in convertible assets, convertible notes, and the rest will be paid out post-closing upon completion of certain industry-based milestones. I'm guessing that's either federal decriminalization or legalization on some level. Here are the cities Diddy will be gaining access to through the deal. In New York, Brooklyn, Manhattan, New Hartford, and Rochester are for retail, and Rochester also for production. Greenfield in Massachusetts, Greenfield, Worcester, Leicester. I don't know how to really pronounce that. For retail, and Leicester also for production. And in Illinois, Jefferson Park and Villa Park, both in Chicago for retail, and Aurora for production. In his first investment in cannabis, this is a very major one indeed. Diddy's quoted in the article saying, "My mission has always been to create opportunities for Black entrepreneurs in industries where we've traditionally been denied access, and this acquisition provides the immediate scale and impact needed to create more equitable future in cannabis." Owning the entire process from growing, manufacturing to marketing, retail, and wholesale distribution is a historic win for the culture that will allow us to empower diverse leaders throughout the ecosystem and be bold advocates for inclusion. Take that, take that. Growing up on the East Coast as a complete stan of music coming from Diddy's Bad Boy Records and Jay-Z's Rockefeller Records, the way they both changed the game when it came to optics tied to Black business and entrepreneurship was amazing. Through my own rap career, it never really made it past random dumb freestyles with my homeboys. But to say these two gentlemen have been a positive influence for me and other young Black entrepreneurs looking to advance their knowledge in the game and careers is beyond an understatement. It's crazy to see both of them as billionaires now, respectively at the helm of giant cannabis companies with major assets in the largest cannabis markets. And I hope both realize success in cannabis and it leads to similar influence on the next generation of great Black business leadership. We will be watching. This is Rico Lamitte, dopest dad in the street for High at 9 News. I'd love to hear what everybody else has to say about this one. What do y'all think?
How hands-on do you expect Sean Puffy Combs to be in his new acquisition?
About as hands-on as Jay-Z is, not at all. Like his company is acquiring the assets, and he'll probably be, the face of the
Puffy's pre-rolls.
He's gonna be employing so many people of color. That's what makes me excited about this.
How did he beat Jay-Z's? It's saying that he's the biggest.
Yeah,
because he acquired the majority of Columbia Care and Cresco's assets in New York and in Illinois.
Do we see this as almost a
Jay-Z with the parent company? They're taking over California, but he's taking over Illinois, and Boston. 3 major markets.
Is anyone concerned that some of the bigger MSOs are just like, fuck this shit, we're selling off our licenses? Is that a concern to anyone?
No.
No.
I mean, because they're all realizing that there's no fucking money being made, and they're all going upside down.
Also, you think they just now realize that? They just now realize that?
Yeah, I was thinking on one hand, but on the other side, the one of the biggest reasons why a lot of those MSOs can't be successful is because they have no connection to the culture, to the streets.
Wrong.
Where Jay-Z,
what are you talking about? I don't care about them not having a connection. Their problem that they can't make money is because they have to build the same business in every single state, and there's no interstate commerce.
Yes, on one hand, but on the other hand,
they're not losing money because they're not legacy operators.
They have no respect, and people in the streets aren't going to buy them.
Because the people going to these dispensaries are real concerned about the industry culture.
Because motherfuckers buy the shit.
But
just
none of that stuff
has
happened. None of that stuff has happened in California with Jay-Z stuff.
I think Jay-Z made a misstep coming out to California. Nobody really cares as much.
Nobody cares that it's his.
The East Coast,
you know what I mean?
Yes. In the East Coast, it's a lot different because they don't have 26 years of quasi legalization like California does. I think Jay-Z's is a little bit of a misstep, like going all the way in California, because it's not that big of a deal. But on the East Coast, it's a very different conversation. I think Puffy's going to be very successful.
Hold on. How does that New York proposal of banning MSOs, how is that going to affect Puffy's new acquisition, though?
Ooh, good point.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I think that the new regulations is why people are exiting New York too.
They're exiting New York before it even began.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I mean, I think people are really quickly seeing how New York is going to be your zaddy.
It's going to be
what? You mean the state?
Your zaddy. The state of New York. If you have a business there, the state of New York is going to be your zaddy.
Oh yes, that's right, because they're going to be your partner.
So is there more truth to Kanye's rant that not on the anti-Semitic stuff? Don't get started on that.
Which part, bro? Which part?
Don't even tag me with that shit.
I don't even know what he said. I'm scared now.
Nope. I'm not even going. But I'm talking about when he was talking about Puff Daddy, and he said that Puff is the ops.
Oh.
Think about it. Connect the dots.
Yes. That's deep. That's deep. That's a good time for us to segue into a commercial so we can pay some bills while we follow that money.
Good luck, Puff.
At True Classic OG, we live by one motto: stay true. We stay true to our legacy cut of True OG that's always fresh, piney, gassy, and delicious. We represent the spirit, hustle, and diversity of our great city of angels. And we stay true to the spirit of this plant, doing everything in-house to ensure that you get the highest quality and consistency with every batch. And that's what's made us LA's favorite OG. True Classic OG. Stay true, Los Angeles. The thoughts and opinions shade thrown on the High at 9 News are those individual speakers, not those of any other speaker or its followers. Statements made do not constitute legal or accounting advice, and our speakers make no representation regarding the legal status of any substance in any country, area, territory, or its authorities. The views expressed in this room do not establish any fiduciary relationships or sponsors do not imply that constitute the endorsement by us, the expression of any opinion whatsoever, or any speaker on stage. If you're an easily offended for a person, this show is probably not for you. Also, maybe it's time to invest in a dying cannabis business.
Oh, man.
Yes, it is.
That's rough. Flying into LAX and you want to taste some of the best weed in the world? Then stop by LAXCC, the closest dispensary to LAX, located at 8332 Lincoln Boulevard and open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Always make LAXCC your first stop when you touch down in LA and score like a winner. And don't forget to tell them I sent you and mention you'd like to get High 9 for 10% off your full order.
She's well known in those DC streets and circles for cooking up excellence in the kitchen, but don't get it twisted. This spicy red-headed conservative's never afraid to spar with pot-loving libs across the aisle, and she's never afraid to back up her love for safe banking. Safe banking, the original, and Safe Banking Plus. I don't know. She's evolved, if you said. Coming up next is the founder of Panoptic Strategies and our very own Washington insider. Reporting live from Washington, D.C., it's Gretchen Gailey. What do you have for us today?
Good afternoon. My headline is coming from Marijuana Moment. New York's first recreational marijuana dispensaries could be approved within weeks, top regulator says. The first New York recreational marijuana retailer licenses could be approved in about 2 weeks, a top regulator said yesterday, previewing plans for an upcoming Cannabis Control Board meeting. While nothing has been formally scheduled and announced yet, CCB is expected to meet on November 21st and potentially approve the first set of conditional adult use retail dispensary licenses. Axel Burnaby of the Office of Cannabis Management said the Business of Cannabis Conference in New York City. Regulators have said on several occasions in recent months that they're on track to have adult use marijuana storefronts open by the end of the year, but the comments from Burnaby are more specific about the timeline. He said the state is in a position to meet that goal. Tremaine Wright, chair of the CCB, similarly said on a separate panel yesterday that we are on target to open the first cannabis storefronts owned by people who've been disproportionately affected by the war on drugs this year. There will be stores open before the end of the year, and we will keep opening until 150 are open across the state. This comes days after the OCM released guidance for recreational marijuana dispensaries, which serves to provide the framework that will assist, the acronym sucks, CAURD licenses, which are adult use licenses, CARD, whatever, to operate their dispensary before regulations are formally adopted. Much of the conversations at the conference centered on the importance of providing equal opportunities for small businesses and justice-involved entrepreneurs to participate in the industry. To that end, officials said that Governor Kathy Hochul's $200 million private public social equity fund will help the state achieve market parity. I fully expect the state to be making investments, Wright said. This is the first opportunity for people to demonstrate their commitment to equity. State regulators closed a month window for accepting applications for the state's first cannabis retail licenses in September, and 903 businesses run by people who've been harmed by the drug war completed and submitted their forms. It's not clear how many conditional licenses will be up for the first approvals that are planned for later this month, but officials say that they will be selecting 150 applicants in total before expanding the application pool. The timeline for retailers to launch is also contingent on the Dormitory Authority of the state of New York being able to design and build turnkey storefronts for the licensees. In order to qualify for the special retail license, applicants must have faced a conviction for a cannabis-related offense prior to the enactment of legalization in the state or have a direct relative with such a conviction. And they must also have experience operating a qualifying business. Regulators have also expanded the definition of a qualifying justice-involved individual to include people who were arrested for marijuana but convicted for a lesser offense, which advocates view as a positive step that will broaden the applicant pool. I'm standing behind my words that I made probably a few months ago that New York will get an adult use dispensary open before the end of the year, like they have said. I have optimism for New York, and I hope they get it done. Another thing I think that'll be very important for the New York market is for Kathy Hochul to win re-election. And it's looking a little rough for her. So we shall see. If she's out next week, that could smell, I said, that could spell doom for cannabis in New York. This Gretchen for High at Night News.
Yeah, Gretchen, she's definitely on the ropes right now. Lee Zeldin is giving her a run for the money right now.
We'll see.
So my favorite is talking to people that applied for licenses. I have a couple people that I work with that have applied for licenses, and they're like, how could they do this? Because they're like still changing the laws. You know what I mean? And I had to explain to a couple people, I'm like, did you read the like long ass sheet that you signed that was this like whole thing being like, yeah, so we don't exactly know how we're going to do this, but we're going to let you apply for it anyways. There was, everyone signed a waiver being like, yeah, we understand that the laws aren't finalized and we don't know. And so, I mean, that just spells disaster to me, because I'm like,
smells switch up.
Oh man. And so then the other part where, okay, so if the law comes in where you can't have multiple locations or be an MSO, right? But the application was a merit-based situation where you had to show them that you had experience in a cannabis business.
2 years experience.
And so
wasn't it 2 years to a comparable business? I don't think it was.
No. 2 years profitability in a cannabis business.
Right. 2 years.
Yes. 2 years.
Yeah. And so if you started and
tax returns to prove that, right?
Yep.
Exactly.
So if you started that way, and then you closed your business down and you applied and you were like, here's the 2 years, and then I'm not in business anymore and now I'm going, sure, fine. But like a lot of people, it's been the past 2 years and they're still in business. And so the like switcheroo that a lot of people are going to have to do, because the licensing process made it to one point, and then they have like for the social equity applicants and the nonprofits, they have till the end of the year, I believe, to update all of their application stuff. So I'll be really curious to see how it actually shakes out.
Isn't Cookies technically a social equity applicant in New York?
I think I think that there's somebody that worked with them that did apply. I don't know for a fact that Cookies was the applicant, but that somebody that worked with Cookies or was a part of a Cookies is the social equity.
Maybe that's how Diddy's gonna do his shit. Maybe that's like the only way he's gonna be able to.
Because a licensing
well,
deal
no,
is different.
he bought a vertically integrated business. If he bought their license in New York,
But he
they
can
have
put
a
a
medical
social equity
license.
applicant's name on the license.
They
No, but
weren't
you
saying
can
you
do
couldn't
way
be in
more
New
with a
York,
medical
though. They didn't
license.
say you couldn't be in New York.
Do we know
So-
if these were grandfathered licenses though?
The ones in New York that he bought, yes.
Yeah.
Those are the original ones. But that's the New York regulation that hasn't passed yet, but that doesn't. It says that you can't have out of state business. So you can have a full in the state business. So that was the variable on that. So like the New York business isn't a problem. It's the, like, what did he say? You said he bought Ohio and
He bought
Massachusetts
Illinois
and
and
Illinois.
Illinois,
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Yeah, those will be maybe more of a concern. But you can, like, the licensing of the brand is what a lot of people end up doing anyways. It's not like Cookies applying. It's like Nicole and I'm paying Cookies a licensing fee. You know,
Right. Right. I can dig it. Very interesting indeed, Gretchen. For real.
It's gonna happen. It's a coming, New York.
I don't know. I don't think the timeline's going to permit for that, Gretchen. I mean, it's already November.
New York's about to be all of those people, Zaddy. Like, I swear to you, I've been trying to explain this to people. I'm like, you don't want to be 50-50
But Nicole,
partners.
you've opened a lot of stores. Do you really think, in reality, by the time that they announce this, let's just say they announce it on the 15th of November, who's getting these? Do you really think that 6 weeks is enough for someone to actually be open before January 1?
I mean, they got food trucks out there already, man.
I know. I could open in 3 weeks.
I know you could.
I know you could.
I know you could, but I'm saying, do you think any of these people ultimately will?
Yeah. I mean, they'll do it terribly. I've seen a lot of people do it in the same amount of time that I can do it, but it's just they're not going to do it.
Do you remember how much a shit show it was when the first licenses opened here, Jason? Like how much
I know
the first day was?
Exactly. That's why I think there's absolutely pretty much 99.99999% that no one will be open before December 31st of this year.
I mean, they've already been growing. Those licenses. I mean, there's
just because
they will be.
I mean,
6 weeks is more than enough time.
I guarantee you, if someone thinks they're going to make
JMTS.
money, they're going to be able to turn lights on in a building and start selling some pot.
Yeah.
It might not be perfect, but yeah.
Especially some of these businesses some of these people owned the building, are almost completely built out, like no problem. Yeah, I absolutely think.
Actually,
you know what?
No, they're not.
You want to make a bet?
I'm fine to make a bet. Yes.
Yes.
Let's make a bet. Let's make a bet.
Death match.
Yep. $100.
All right. So you're gonna owe me $200 by the end of the year.
Yeah, right.
I want in on this. I got 50 on Gretchen.
You got 50. So are you hedging your bet, Gretchen? Or I'll take $100 from both of you if you want. I'm totally fine with that. You know, you guys can split the 100, or I'll put $100 to both your hundreds on this.
All right, good. Done. Then there will be an adult use dispensary open before the end of the year.
Now, hold on a second. I do want one speculation. I do want to make sure that one speculation to this is that we're talking about a brand new licensee opening the business. We're not talking about an MSO that switches over that's already been open or anything like that.
We're talking you backpedaling some bitch. Yes.
I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure we're clear. But nonetheless, in an industry full of snakes, flakes, and snakes in the great red state of Texas, with trolls posting up daily smoking Delta 8 under the bridge, he is hitting the high road. That's right. He's the host and co-creator of the new show, Hitting the High Road. That's right. Is none other than the Stone Slade.
Thank you, Jason. Beck, coming out of the great turning purple state of Texas. Today, my story is going to come from down south here. It's Adam MJ moment. We're going to Arkansas. Like all states across the country, Arkansas is preparing for a very important election. One initiative the Arkies get an opportunity to vote on is legal adult use cannabis. Unfortunately for Mary Jane and her supporters, it appears that the support to legalize adult use in the state is dwindling, at least according to a new poll released just days ahead of Election Day. The survey from the University of Arkansas found that 41% of adults in the state support cannabis reform measure, while 59% are now opposed. Early polling gave Responsible Growth Arkansas campaign the advantage, but recent surveys showed the initiative losing steam. In the latest survey, this question was asked of Arkansas voters. Issue 4 would change the Constitution to legalize the possession and use of marijuana by adults, allowing its cultivation and sale by licensed commercial facilities. Given this description, do you favor or oppose this measure? Democrats are in favor by a small margin, 50% in support, 46% against, Across the aisle, only 30% of Republicans are in favor compared to 65% against, and independents are in opposition, 57% to 40%. As in past surveys, support was strongest among young people, whereas 71% of those aged 18 to 24 are on board. But there's a steep fall off in the older generations that have had their opinions on cannabis tainted by decades of prohibition. Robert McClarty, campaign director for Responsible Growth Arkansas, pushed back on those numbers, showing the measure so far behind. He said, over the past several months, we've witnessed several surveys regarding issue 4. Recently, Talk Business and Politics released a survey taken during the same period that shows the opposite results. Therefore, the only result that matters is the result of Arkansas voters will decide on Election Day. Today is the excellent reminder to those who want to legalize cannabis to get out and vote for issue 4. I strongly encourage Arkansans, sorry about that, to seriously consider what issue 4 can do for our state. He said over the next 5 days, for those who have not voted, want to legalize cannabis safely, fund the police, fund cancer research, create jobs, and create millions of dollars in revenue for our state, now is the time to vote for issue 4. Now is your time to make history. Now, the MJ Moment article gives all the details of what the initiative would accomplish, so I encourage everyone to give that a read. A couple of things to note is that home cultivation will not be allowed, and the tax revenue would be divided up between law enforcement, 15%, University of Arkansas for medical services, 10%, and the state drug program, 5%. The remaining revenue go to a state's general fund. The main opposition that has been coming from high-profile conservative officials like Governor Asa Hutchinson and Senators Tom Cotton and John Boozman. Governor Hutchinson, a former U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration head, previously suggested that it was given that the measure will end up before voters, but he urged police to help campaign against it. Which has encouraged political organizations like Safe and Secure Communities, Family Council Action Committee, and Save Arkansas from Epidemic to also campaign against the measure, and has generated hundreds of thousands of dollars in contributions. President of Family Council Action Committee, Jerry Cox, said, enough is enough. Arkansas does not need another drug problem. He also went on to dispute the possible tax revenue, saying that it only taxes marijuana in Arkansas about half the rate as they do in Colorado. So this idea that somehow there's going to be a lot of money for police and lots of money for hospitals and drug courts is not true. Meanwhile, a recent economic analysis found that Arkansas's marijuana market could see nearly $1 billion in annual cannabis sales and more than $460 million in tax revenue over 5 years if voters approve the measure. In these situations, it's propaganda versus truth, and overly conservative Arkansas, the propaganda pushers seem to be winning. As a Texan, though, all I can say is, hey, at least the voters have an opportunity to make that choice. We don't have that here. If the initiative fails, it's time. Then it's time to hopefully, so supporters can find a way to let truth win the next election cycle. I'm Stone Slade reporting for the High at 9 News Hour.
This would be tragic if it doesn't happen. I think the fact behind the scenes here, Arkansas recently reported their highest budget surplus in state history, record-setting $1.628 billion as of this June. It seems like it's good on one side, but on the other side, they're not spending money on shit. So it could be a huge leverage for the prohibitionists to say we don't even need that money.
Yeah. Well, I'm hopeful for Arkansans that they will get legalization, because we have seen in the past when it comes to elections, perhaps more conservative folks win out when it comes to the actual people. But when it comes to the ballot initiatives and cannabis, they're passing overwhelmingly, and their numbers don't match up with what you see when it comes to the actual candidates. People want cannabis, and those numbers have always been strong. So I think it's going to be hard pressed not to pass. I really don't think it's going to fail just because some doubters are out there right now.
But sometimes there are bad bills, Gretchen.
What?
Sometimes there are bad bills, and the community
There's
just
one
doesn't
bill that
support
has
them.
not passed, and that was in Ohio many years ago.
California voted in legalization down the first time.
Is also known for another bad bill.
All right. What a great time for us to segue into our next correspondent. Thank you so much for that story, Stone. We're going to hop to our next correspondent, Omar Figueroa. He's a multi-talented attorney that's the founder of the Bi-Coastal Boutique cannabis law firm with offices in California and New York. So hopefully he can help all those people that are getting that New York zaddy business going. NCIA director, a legal publisher, author of the Ganjier, a purple belt of high-style Brazilian jiu-jitsu, reserving his right to fuck you up at any time with his knowledge, weed, or hands, all of which have been registered as weapons of moderate to light destruction. Omar, what do you have for us today?
Thank you, Nicole. Happy Friday, everyone. My story is from MJ Biz Daily by Matt Lemers. The headline is, Fitch chops Canopy rating, citing cannabis producers Constellation link. Canopy Growth's planned entry into the U.S. marijuana market has hit another hurdle, this time over the cannabis producer's ties to its largest investor. Fitch Ratings downgraded its credit assessment of the Ontario, Canada-based Canopy to CCC minus, one of its lowest ratings. CCC carries substantial credit risk such that default is a real possibility. It's the second time in 6 months that Canopy's credit rating has come under scrutiny from Fitch. The New York-based ratings company said it believes the strategic link between Canopy's biggest investor, alcohol giant Constellation Brands, and the licensed cannabis producer has materially diminished after Canopy announced its plan to speed its entry into the U.S. THC market. As such, Canopy's ratings no longer benefit from a one-notch uplift from its standalone credit profile, Fitch said. In a statement to MJ Biz Daily, a Canopy spokesperson said Constellation Brands remains vested in Canopy's success as a major shareholder and fully supports this strategy as the best way to position Canopy for near and long-term success. The spokesperson added that Canopy is making the move to take its destiny into its own hands by fast-tracking its entry into the U.S. marijuana market and taking full ownership of its investments there. Constellation executives touched on their commitment to Canopy and the cannabis industry in a conference call with analysts on October 6th. After being asked how long Constellation is willing to wait for U.S. legalization and how he views the alcohol company's stake in the cannabis producer changing, Constellation CEO William Newland said, "I wouldn't expect you to see the size of our investment in that change." Newlands admitted he had failed miserably in predicting the pace of U.S. legalization, but also said he's hopeful there will soon be progress. In its latest update, Fitch said it downgraded the long-term issued default ratings for Canopy Growth down to CCC minus. Fitch also lowered the credit rating of the senior secured term loan facility. Rather than waiting for the U.S. to legalize at the federal level, Canopy has launched Canopy USA, which would purchase the 3 American marijuana businesses Canopy had agreed to buy after the U.S. ended prohibition, pending various approvals. Canopy's proposal calls for Canopy USA, not Canopy Growth, to own the assets, and the Canadian business would hold non-voting exchangeable shares in Canopy USA. Fitch believes the transaction, as proposed, is subject to material execution risks, including regulatory, shareholder, and exchange approval, the credit ratings agency said. Fitch isn't the first to raise concerns about the deal. The New York-based NASDAQ Stock Exchange objects to Canopy's plan to eventually consolidate the financial results of Canopy USA. By contrast, the Toronto Stock Exchange suggested that the proposed structure is compatible with the exchange's rules. Neither the Toronto Stock Exchange nor NASDAQ would answer specific MJ Biz Daily questions. Fitch noted that Canopy USA would need to maintain funding separate from its parent company. Fitch will continue to review Canopy's corporate structure and exposure to U.S. THC assets that are federally illegal and whether that increases rating concerns, the ratings company said. Fitch also noted significant execution risk in Canopy's premiumization strategy and an uncertain path to profitability, highlighting significant lost market share in Canada. This has delayed production of a consistent, higher quality supply at commercial scale and generated weak operating results with an uncertain path to profitability, according to the Fitch note. Canopy hopes to counter these issues with a change in its genetics and cultivation strategy to higher quality cannabis with the right attributes for the premium and mainstream flower, pre-rolls, edible, and vape markets, while using the value segment as an outlet strategy. On that point, Constellation's executives said that during the analyst conference called They continue to believe that Canopy's focus on premiumizing its cannabis branded portfolio in Canada is appropriate, and they remain supportive of Canopy's efforts to strengthen their emerging consumer packaged goods brand distribution. Fitch said further negative ratings actions could be taken if the company's premiumization cultivation strategy fails, or if it pursues a repayment of the remaining 2023 notes that Fitch considers a distressed debt exchange, if liquidity appears constrained such that default is probable. Canopy shares trade on the Toronto Stock Exchange and on the NASDAQ. My take is that maybe it's time to invest in a dying cannabis business. Seriously, the premiumization strategy is an indication that MSOs are finally realizing that their swag is considered boofed by consumers. From a long-term perspective, all right.
No, Omar, that was a cheering you on. Keep on going, please.
That's what we do in the club. Like,
from a long-term perspective,
rewind.
premiumization is good news for craft cultivators and manufacturers. I'd like to hear from my fellow correspondents. This is Omar Figueroa, lawyer, publisher, and Ganjier instructor, reporting from Sonoma County for High at 9, high noon Eastern.
Yes,
Omar,
this is just us agreeing with you, Omar.
Yeah, like I
For the
agree.
record.
I agree with what you're saying on Canopy, and I'm not trying to have their back on anything but like that. But there's like the kettle calling the pot black right here, because Fitch is responsible for the U.S. mortgage crisis. Fitch was also hit with the largest fucking SEC fine of all time back in 2019 for siding with a French billionaire and rating his company highly, but they had assets with him. So fuck Fitch and fuck all these ratings companies that fuck all the little guys over, and they give credence to all the biggest of the big, and a bunch of the white guys in fucking suits that come in there. It's the good old boys club. Out with those assholes. Burn it all down.
I've been feeling like the guy on The Big Short about this industry for about 10 years. And I've been telling everybody, I got my real estate license and 3 days later, the economy crashed. I've been trying to explain to people that this is literally the real estate market. Cannabis industry is the real estate market all over again. And I'd say we're at about 2008 right now in its evolution, and what we're about to see happen with all of these people. Basically, in my mind, the cannabis industry was given the idea of the ability to have what is stated income, right? We're like, we're going to make $1 billion fucking dollars. And then they were convinced in 3 years, you're going to sell and become millionaires. Your ability to refi, right? Before that balloon payment pops in, it's the same fucking thing. It's happening like mirrored image. And I'm just going to have a couple, I told you so's to a couple of the homies. And I was like, watch when the economy crashes for weed.
And this is not financial advice, but what I say is short them all.
Yeah, I always compare it to like buying a luxury car right off the fucking lot. You're gonna let somebody else take all the depreciation off that shit. You're gonna turn it back in and buy it CPO, better warranty, better everything, and you lost out. And that's what we're seeing Diddy doing right now. Great financial advice from Puff Daddy Combs. Buying something.
Financial advice from Diddy.
5 years old. All right, we have to keep it going here. Up next and bringing us home today is the real industry OG doctor with a proven track record for years of serving up daily doses of compassion for the people. He's also founder of Medican and co-founder of CESC, a nonprofit cannabis research organization, and he's seriously doing some great work out there, y'all. Make sure you guys check him out. Coming to the stage is Dr. Jean Talleyrand. What do you have for us today, good doctor?
Thanks, Rico. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Great conversations today. My headline is from Skilled Nursing News by Shelby Grebin. Biden calls for marijuana reform could be turning point for skilled nursing facilities. So this story is not so much about Biden or national politics. To me, it's more about the skilled nursing facility in New York called Hebrew Home at Riverdales. In 2014, when New York passed the Compassionate Care Act, its medical cannabis law, Dr. Zachary Pallas, the medical director of Hebrew Home, was faced with the perplexing question. By permitting residents to exercise their full rights as citizens of the state, could he put the senior care center at risk for non-compliance? Skilled nursing and assisted living facilities are where much of us may spend the last decade of our lives. Whether bedbound or just needing help with activities of daily living, seniors benefit from the extra help that these facilities provide. The question is access to cannabis. Are seniors able to get the cannabis they desire? Cannabis use is getting decriminalized and destigmatized, and baby boomers are responsible. Remember, the elderly are the ones who started this medical cannabis movement back in the 70s. As a compassionate geriatrician, Dr. Pallas recognizes the potential benefits of cannabis for his elderly patients. Cannabis helps with chronic pain, insomnia, poor appetite, and neurological conditions like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and seizures. But Pallas is also aware that cannabis is a Schedule I drug, and any skilled nursing facility that actively dispenses cannabis is in jeopardy of losing Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements, which is a death sentence for any nursing home. So Pallas and Hebrew Home CEO Daniel Reingold set out to create a medical cannabis program for the residents with some workaround rules. Residents can obtain the medication via recommendation from a physician such as myself, and they're able to maintain it in their own space in their room, Pallas said. They get a lockbox that only they have the key to. It's truly their property, and it's not in the facility's possession, but it's in their own personal possession. Another participation condition requires residents to self-administer the cannabis unless they have a companion or family member who can administer it for them, he added. Hebrew Home's program does not risk non-compliance due to the fact that cannabis is not in the facility's possession or being administered by facility nurses or staff. Although the program only has 10 participants, 9 out of 10 are showing improvement of their symptoms. There's another problem. The high cost of cannabis bars many residents at Hebrew Home from participating. There are no insurances that cover it, says Pallas, so it's really very much an out-of-pocket cost to them. And you know, elderly seniors, older adults living in skilled nursing facilities are of limited means, and for many, even though they'd like to participate in the program, due to the fact that it's not covered by insurance, they're not able to afford it. Dr. Pallas goes on to say that he thinks cannabis should be rescheduled to Schedule 5 or descheduled. The article also brings up the fact that the schedule changes are up to the DEA and are not going to happen soon. What I mostly like about this story is that despite the regulatory hurdles and politics, Dr. Pallas and CEO Reingold found a way to help their patients. We started this movement for compassionate reasons. No matter what hurdles government and industry wish to place on a plant, a weed that grows in the garden, we should keep compassion in mind as we work to help the elderly get the treatments they need. This is Dr. Jean Talleyrand reporting for the High at 9 News.
What else is Schedule 5?
Epidiolex is Schedule 5, CBD. Marinol is Schedule 3.
I mean,
available over the counter stuff.
Those are all prescription.
No, those are all prescription.
Prescription. Yeah, no schedule is available over the counter. All schedules are either not available or doctors.
Or you gotta search the streets.
Yeah. Or you ask Jason.
So it's like it's like the stuff that you have to go to the back of CVS, be like, yo, like I have this card, I can't buy it because you can make meth out of it.
Yeah. But I mean, you can make meth out of things you can't buy over the counter.
I mean, the Sudafed, they started limiting how much Sudafed you could buy because
it's funny. They called that looping when you used to go in and buy too much Sudafed from pharmacies.
Is that right?
I got flagged for that shit. I ended up buying allergy medicine for myself and my stupid boyfriend. He's going through all my damn medicine, and then when I go into CVS, they're like, "Nope, you've been flagged." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like,
"Buying too much.
You got to come in separately."
30-day limit. Yeah, follow that 30-day limit.
All those meth heads out there ruining the world, making your life more inconvenient, Gretchen.
They suck.
Blame it on the tweakers.
Nope. Follow the money. You blame it on Big Pharma. Message. Taking us out, Jason.
Oh, I thought you guys switched it up. I thought you guys switched it up. Oh, hold on a second.
Who's fishing?
I apologize.
Are we hicking loop?
One thing that made me sad about this story was that the patients who can't afford medical cannabis, because before Proposition 4, they all would have been taken care of.
100%. 100%.
Which why cannabis should be covered by insurance. Period.
It definitely should. But thank you all for getting high at 9 with us today, every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry as we know it today. Thank you to all the haters for still talking about us. Huge thank you to True Classic LAXCC for helping us keep the lights on. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Thank you all to Cannabis for giving us the reason to do this. And thank you to 3 is 4 for helping us create this space in the miniverse. And thank you all for tuning in. That's right. Most importantly, thank you all. Thank you. Pat yourself on the back. And thank you all for tuning in, getting high at 9 with us. Run it, Adam.
You are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nicole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.